Within the last short while, I've been talking with Tony Lomas, and he showed an interest in what I was doing and the work we were doing with injured workers. As president of the Network of Injured Workers Association and So Sure Injured Workers Association, we have been studying and trying to get some insight why injured workers were having such a difficult time in getting benefits. Briefly to mention the Workers' Compensation Board, that was an organization set up by government, and it was intended to help injured workers and pay them a sum of money while they were off the job. It's been years that they had been telling us they were underfunded, they didn't have enough money, and nobody seemed to get the hold of what was really happening. It was only within this last several months we have been discovered and we've been told by compensation personnel that the fund at the WCB is $1.2 billion. Now, that's a lot of money. They never told us this before. They were crying for need more funds and charge more fees, and got on a rough horse, and they simply was forgetting about injured workers. Their interested appeared to be more interested in setting up a financial institution, investing huge amounts of money that actually belonged to injured workers. Now, in setting up our associations, we did have meetings with government personnel and the WCB, and they decided that the groups would be given a certain amount of money to function and help injured workers to get their claims settled and help them to get benefits. It seemed rather strange when the policy of the board was that injured workers would have a benefit of doubt when it came down to questionable matters. Now that proved to be wrong. And the way the system works, they will hire a lawyer and they will do your petitions and your appeals, and they pay the lawyers to do this. Now, after several appeals, as it was in my case, I didn't get anywhere, even though my doctor gave me written information that I was suffering seriously from chronic pain. I don't know how they study chronic pain, but basically they do not have a bone specialist or a muscular specialist hired by the WCB. So anyway, they take a person in there and they'll examine them, and they'll pretty well follow a decision that's made previously or old records that's not filled out properly, etc. So we found out that there was more money in the WCB than we were being told. Before they admitted they have this huge amount of funds invested in assets, and $1 billion plus here in Nova Scotia is a lot of money. I think employers ought to get organized because they're being ripped off. They're paying huge amounts of money for their workers, and workers necessarily are not getting the benefit of it. So we were supposed to get these funds and to help us with our associations in helping injured workers. So we were cut off. The Network of Injured Workers Association and the So Sure Injured Workers Association, we were denied funds because we weren't following the rule. Now, basically the rule was that you don't rattle any paper and you don't shake anybody, you don't say anything. So we found out a lot of things. Now this appeal process is very, very tricky. The government will hire a lawyer and pay him, and the lawyer will go through the appeals that's allowed, and then they say no more appeals. You can't go no further no matter how right you are. So then you'll go back to the legal community and you'll find that they'll tell you, we know you deserve to get funds. You should get money. You've been injured and you rightly deserve getting help. So these lawyers then will tell you, you can't have no more appeals, but if you want to hire us, we will take your case and go to appeal as an individual basis. Well, it ends up, and this has happened between Sydney and Yarmouth, a number of injured workers has shown me where, after they wouldn't allow no more appeals, the lawyers seem to be able to get an appeal when you hire them, and they'll end up asking you to sign a paper or papers that gives them power of attorney over your money or whatever they get. And they will fill that out for you, and they'll ask for at least 25% or more of what they claim they get for you from the compensation board. That seems a bit funny to me, because they were paying lawyers to do this, and the lawyers could play the game and not get you nothing, and then all of a sudden these legals, you'd go back to them and they could get you something if you gave them more money. Well, they took it out of your check when they got it. They were pretty sure they could get it, so they took it on the basis of how much you get, so we take the percentage. So I found out that lawyers have collected what I believe the legals in the province now are seeing a payout from the WCB, and we have a whole list there for a 2-week period. One law firm was paid $113,000 in a 2-week period. Now this we got on paper that came from the WCB. They didn't deny it when we met with them, they admitted it. So anyway, they pay the lawyers, and the lawyers will put this money, or the legals put this money in their trust accounts, and they'll sit on that maybe a month or 2 months, something like this, and they get their salary because the money's in the trust account to pay them. And the injured worker again is at a great disadvantage, because the lawyers seem to have made a game out of this, the legals in the province, where they collect from both parties. Well, looking at this a little bit further, it seems to me that the Book of Ethics for Legals states that you cannot work for a plaintiff and a defendant in the same case. It's a conflict of interest, and yet it's being done. This has been set up by Mr. Innes Christie and Mr. Dave Stewie, who's no longer there. They left with $500,000 golden handshakes from the board, and they left there, but these errors have never been corrected. Now, we created such a fiasco, they had the Dorsey report done. Mr. Dorsey toured the province, and he was shown material that I'm speaking of, and this material, he looked at it, and in his findings, the findings that he found that there was a terrible lot of incompetence, and he seemed to feel that it needed a serious investigation. It needed to have the books overhauled, and in fact, he labeled them in pretty plain words as criminals. And it was strange. This report was done, and yet the government had looked at it, apparently was tabled. They didn't act on that report, and the report stands and speaks well for itself. I stand behind that report, and the wording and technology and the terms that have been used in that report is correct. The board has failed miserably in its mandate of looking after injured workers. Some injured workers have fared fairly well, while others is absolutely impossible. And you go to the board to talk, hire a lawyer, they tell you, get a legal. Well, after these legals have been paid by the government,